Hi, I'm Ben Felder with The Oklahoman, and I'm in North Tulsa, a predominantly African-American community that largely supported Democrat Hillary Clinton and the presidential election.
How would I describe Tulsa? North Tulsa is predominantly African-Americans, black people. When it comes to other parts of Tulsa, it's kind of segregated in a way. It's always mentioned by location. If you're gonna say, it's always called North Tulsa in the news if there's a murder. There's a lot of churches, a lot of unity on that front. I think North Tulsa is very lively, a group of vivacious people, and I don't think that they are people who should be left out of the narrative, when we talk about Tulsa.
Today, everybody's politically correct. Our country's going to hell with being politically correct.
However, as Donald Trump becomes the next president of the United States, many residents we talked to said that they had concerns, especially over the rhetoric that he used over the campaign as it related to African Americans, other minorities, and urban communities.
When I watched the election, went to multiple election parties and all those things that night, and when I got home and came to the realization of who's going to be our next president, I had a real looking at, really a reality check of our country, of really saying where we really are right now. What's the real identity right now? What is the majority of our identity right now? It really hurt me for a good week and a half to just sit there and have different people in the community really showing their face. Because you had people that were excited. You had people that were like, oh yes, this is what we've been wanting. This is what we want to present. And this is, to me, a travesty.
Racism in the 21st century doesn't always take an appearance like the Klan. With the election of Trump, people coming out of the woodwork, making all kind of horrible things in the stores, saying things, yeah, we're in charge now, which says, okay, now is that all of Trump's support? I'm not saying it is.
I agree. I like that guy. Stand up. Look, that's my guy.
Many residents said that they also felt like the Trump election had kind of woken their community up. One person told me that he felt like the conversation over the issues facing his community had kind of moved beyond the social media timeline and into the streets. Is there anything that gives you some hope, or at the very least where you feel like there may be some things to work with this new administration as it relates to your community and whatever that looks like?
It's easy when we had President Obama during this time to stay in your bubble. It was easy just not to pay attention on all the politics that was going on even before the election. It was easy to not to pay attention to even some of the shootings and all those things. It was easy to just keep going on. This is not affecting me that much. It's messing with my timeline on my social media, but it wasn't doing much more than that until now. Now it's at everyone's forefront. It's gotten to our sports. It's gotten to our school kids' time. It's gotten to everything. It's a conversation everywhere I go.
I don't look to Trump for hope. That's not where I look for hope. When Ronald Reagan was elected, many of my friends joined with me in saying that, oh, this is not going to be good for us. But we made it on through, and that's kind of the way we made it through. Was not looking toward Washington. I mean, the deal is that you act locally. What is most important for me is to have people, young people, who are awake and who understand, as I was back when Reagan was riding high and I was a young man, that we can't look there, we have to be right here. So you organize. You get with like-minded people, you get disciplined, you educate yourself, you turn away from corporate media that is not going to tell you the whole truth, or if they tell you a little bit, you dig deeper, and you work to help one another.
I have not seen a consistent measure of hope out of Trump. I have not seen a consistent stance, really. Most of the things that he put on his list, first off, he's already crossed out and said he's going to do something else. So, no, I don't see any hope out of non-consistency and lack of trustworthiness. But I see hope in seeing more people wanting to become active in the process.
What are the fears, the anxieties, the hopes, however you want to describe it, this election?
I'm glad you said anxiety because I'm big on mental health, and I think a lot of us are in an anxious state. And when you say anxiety, what I tend to think of is a general feeling of uncomfortableness. So, and that could be due to anything, but especially due to this election, because you don't know what to expect, especially if you're one of the targeted groups that are in fear right now. So women, people of color, Native Americans, LGBTQ community, immigrants. So that anxiety, and for me, it's more of, I believe human behavior plays an important part in us being able to build relationships or relate to people or not relate to people. And I can't predict what's going to happen when I'm out at the store or, even in my workplace, because I don't know people's motives, I don't know people's intentions. I know there were millions of people who wanted to see Trump in office, and I don't think a lot of them were open with their support. So it's kind of hard to know your enemy these days. And so I'm very vigilant since that. I'm very aware of my surroundings, and I'm very intentional about my story and my purpose in this work. So that's how I've been going about my day-to-day since the election.
If we do not succeed as an entire humanity equitably, that our lives are going to be impacted negatively as well, and people are missing that point.
That's right.
And they're missing that point strongly. They really seem to think that what affects all those categories that our now leaders that he's put in cabinet and himself, all the categories of people that they are trying to identify instead of overall humanity. I think people have this assumption that whatever's going to affect them won't affect us, but that's not true.
Thank you. Look at that great group. I love Oklahoma.
He says what people want to hear.
That's true.
It sounds very good to a person that has something. But to tell a person who is without that you have nothing to lose is a dangerous statement.
If I have nothing to lose, then what do I have to gain? Why would I trust someone who already is telling me your future means nothing to me? Your present means nothing to me. It does induce fear, and that's the state of anxiety I'm in.
There are some who believe that the election of Donald Trump as president has kind of reunited conversations and tensions amongst whites and minorities. Here in North Tulsa, many residents we talked to said that those tensions have long existed, and maybe it was just that Trump's candidacy and his campaign and some of his supporters just gave a face to it. Here in North Tulsa, you go back to the 20s of the race riot. It's something that is still fresh in many of the minds of the residents here, even if they weren't alive during it. And the shooting of Terrence Crutcher last year put Tulsa on a map of American cities and communities in which deaths of African Americans at the hands of law enforcement has kind of reunited a debate and a conversation between police and minority communities.
Because Tulsa, unfortunately, was part of that roll of African Americans who've been gunned down in officer-involved shootings. We have a unique perspective because it has affected us. It's not like way over there, it is right here.
If you want to go back, so Greenwood, Black Wall Street, is where the black people were, very self-sufficient as far as the community, banks, schools, doctors, libraries, all of these things. And when they were destroyed during the massacre, a lot of people were not given reparations. There wasn't a lot of relief. People lost. There are still people alive today who are relatives of people from the massacre, and we might have some people who lived through the massacre still alive today. And we also have the Greenwood Cultural Center that kind of depicts that whole story, and there's a lot of interesting things there for as far as a backdrop for what happened in 1921. So today in Tulsa, we're trying to have more people understand that that is an event that caused the Tulsa today to be how it is. Because if you look at it, here we are in North Tulsa. This is primarily a black community, and this is the area that was affected by that race riot.
But part of that is because we never really, as a community, as an entire city, never really come to grips with the Tulsa Race Massacre of 1921. That's never really been fully acknowledged. There have been little moments where, a chief of police would apologize, a minister would apologize, but we tried when the Tulsa Race Riot Commission in the early 2000s issued their report. Many of us were part of a group, Tulsa Reparations Coalition, that was saying, let's implement the recommendations of the commission. And part of those recommendations was in fact reparations, but that didn't happen. We went to court, and because the statute of limitations had told, we were not able to find justice there.
The Terrence Crutcher shooting happened in North Tulsa. Terrence Crutcher was also a resident in North Tulsa. His family, both sides of his family, long North Tulsa residents or Tulsa residents. And so, of course, Tulsans, especially North Tulsans, they showed up, to voice their anger, and their support for the Crutcher family. We saw a lot of rallies, protests. We're still hoping for full justice for Terrence Crutcher.
This congregation has a history of being an activist congregation, a place where people know that they can be heard, their stories can be heard. And so after the tragic deaths of folks around the country, in Minnesota and Baton Rouge, people came to me and said, we'd like to have a healing space where we can begin to articulate how we feel about that. So we had a couple of vigils where people came here and they spoke their truth. Mm-hmm. And part of that was putting up the names of African Americans who had been killed from January of this year by officer-involved shootings. From January of this year until that time, and I guess that would have been in August, September, somewhere in there. And it was at that point, it was 200 and some, and now it's even more than that. And so we stopped putting up names, but these are just what folks would see as part of the backdrop to expressing how they feel. And as part of the art, they just stayed up.
We're at a really rough and tough but beneficial spot to make these changes finally happen. Since segregation and since the Tulsa Race Massacre, we have now an opportunity to start that healing process that there wasn't a gap, but has been a continuum this whole time.
I do not want folks to feel that Tulsa is so advanced in its thinking that everyone is confident that everything will be okay, That's not what the what next is there. It's an unsettling. I think Charles said it correctly. It's an unsettled and unease about what is going on.